The MageSeeker, Song of Nunu, and Convergence. These are all games set in the League of Legends world that are set to release this year, and it continues a trend that Riot started back in 2019 when it started releasing more than just League of Legends content. And sure, 2022 was pretty slow for Riot and a lot of the industry, to be fair, but 2023 is looking much more interesting for us, not just because we're getting these 3 games, but because of how we're getting these 3 games, but more on that in just a bit. Now, if you have been living under a rock and you don't know anything about these games, the first one to talk about is MageSeeker. It is a game set in Demacia where you play as Sylas, one of the mages in League of Legends, presumably during the time period of the Great Mage Rebellion. And we don't really know much about the game outside of some sporadic information that we've got from interviews and things like that, but most of the website talks about recruiting mages and upgrading your base to unlock abilities and to take the fight to Demacia. So it's safe to assume that we'll be roaming around Demacia, hopefully the Freljord as well, and we'll be breaking mages out of prison and building an army and all that sort of good stuff. The game is actually made by Digital Sun, who are the makers of Moonlighter, and side by side you can definitely see the similarities here, but Sylas does certainly seem to be more focused on the combat side of things, which I'm looking forward to. So good news for me, because I like combat games. The game is out on the 18th of April, which is just under a month away at the time of recording this video. So who knows, maybe by the time I put this video out, Sylas will have already released. I'm really slow at making videos. The next game, though, is probably the one that I'm most excited for, and that's Song of Nunu by Tequila Works, the studio that worked on Rime. And just like Rime, the game is a 3D single-player adventure game where you explore an unfamiliar world and uncover its mysteries. Except this time, you play as Nunu, and you have a giant Yeti friend to back you up and ride down mountains and sit around campfires with and stuff like that. The game is set in the Freljord, which, despite being covered in ice, is a pretty interesting part of the world with a lot of storytelling and gameplay potential. There's lots of mysteries around that area, lots of history with gods and things like that. And I feel like a 3D adventure game is the perfect way to explore this part of Runeterra. And Tequila Works seems to be making the most out of that kind of approach and that setting, with some really cool looking areas and gameplay segments already shown off in the trailer. And we do get a brief look at Lysandra as well, which hopefully means that we'll get some meaningful story out of the game as well, which would be fantastic. Now, we don't know exactly when Song of Nunu is coming out, but it is listed for 2023, so soon-ish. Hopefully soon. This game looks great, honestly. And the last game on the list is Convergence, a 2D side-scroller made by Double Stallion, and the focus here is on time-weaving combat and parkour-style traversal systems that lets you run around both Piltover and Zorn as Echo, who is one of my favourite junglers in League, so I'm very happy with that. But we don't really know much about the game. We don't know what other characters will be in it. We don't know what the story is going to be like. I would assume that it's going to be something to do with the Chem Barons, and I would hope that Zeri will be involved and maybe some of Echo's gang from Legends of Runeterra, but who knows? We do see a little rat in the opening few seconds of the trailer, so maybe we'll see Twitch. I'd love that. And whilst we know it's coming out in 2023, we don't know exactly when, but it's meant to be around July time. Now, if you've been paying close attention, then you'll notice that all of these games are being created by studios other than Riot. And that's because these games are being developed through Riot Forge, similar to how The Ruined King was co-developed back in 2021 with Airship Syndicate through Riot Forge. And you might think that these games won't be story-heavy because they're not primarily made by Riot, but The Ruined King was an RPG starring some of League's most popular heroes and fleshed out characters' backstories and their relationships with one another more than any other game that Riot has ever put out. I think these games can have a ton of story and a ton of impact on the lore. They should not be ignored, especially if you do like the lore of League of Legends. But of course, it's not all outsourcing and co-development projects through Riot Forge that we're getting. Riot is working on its very own set of games, with 2 that we know about, being Project L, the fighting game, which we've been getting a lot of updates about recently, and Project F, which we just don't really know anything about because we haven't seen anything from it since 2019, which was 4 years ago now. We do know that Katie Coronis, I think that's how you pronounce her name, was hiring engineers for a PvE game that wasn't the MMO in 2022. So if that is Project F, then Project F still exists, but it could be something else entirely. We just don't know. What we do know is that there are a ton of employees at Riot working on unannounced L&D projects. Go and take a look at their LinkedIn company page. There's so many people working on unannounced projects. And with the way that they're handling their Runeterra IP through third parties and Riot Forge, I think we're in for like a decade of Runeterra games. I really do. League of Legends is going to be just one game set in that Runeterra world. And I'm going to play them all, at least until the MMO comes out and consumes my entire life, let's be honest. But that's it for this video. It's an exciting time to be a fan of League of Legends, its characters and its world, because it's about to get a whole lot bigger. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.